Now, don't forget that after 11, I'm very excited to say that we, of course, will have headliners at 11 o'clock, and we'll be joined, of course, by two top comedians looking at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But it's time now for Mark Meets, in which I interview the biggest names in the world of showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, a true British sporting icon. Monty Panesar is a former English international cricketer. The left-arm spinner Monty made his Test debut for England in 2006 against India in Nagpur. He went on to play in 3 Ashes series, winning 2 of them. And along the way, he was named a Wisden Cricketer of the Year in 2007. And wait for it, Beard of the Year in 2006. An accolade I can only dream of. Monty also achieved great things at club level too, playing for Northamptonshire, Sussex and Essex. On his day, he was practically unplayable. And for a time, he was among the world's most lethal spin bowlers. He's also one of the most recognisable and loved figures in the sport, and is now in demand as a pundit, including right here at GBNews. It's my great privilege to welcome to the studio Monty Panesar. Hi, Monty.
Oh, good evening. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
And of course, the next chapter is sports journalism. Tell me more.
Yeah, I think that's the next, phase of my career, to enter the media journalism career, broadcasting. And I obviously, graduated from St. Mary's, University. And part of my project, the podcast that I did was called Monty Meets. And then your show code is
Yes, I apologise.
So we got something in common.
I hope we haven't nicked your title.
Oh, absolutely
It'll be a big
not.
trouble now. It's obviously a thrill to spend the next stage of your career writing about and analysing the sport that you played so well.
Yeah, look, I love writing. I love, talking about it on TV. I've done radio presenting as well. So, this is obviously, the next stage. And I'm just dipping my toe, someone like yourself who's been in the industry for over 20 years. So I'm sure, you can probably give me a few tips on the do's and the don'ts, in journalism and, and in what direction. Journalism is changed now, isn't it? It's in the digital age. So, it'll be interesting to know, more about that.
Well, the best thing you can do is make sure you've switched your microphone on after you've been to the loo. That would be my top tip. And look, here's the thing. I mean, is there a particular skill to broadcasting on the subject of sport and sport punditry? I mean, what do you think you'll bring to that party?
Well, I think I can give more inside, knowledge about the dressing room atmosphere and also what the players will be going through when they're performing well or when they're struggling. Like, of my experiences when I played for England. And I think, people and fans of cricket would want to know more about that and general sport as well. It's also, trying to talk about cricket and other sports, which is interesting, for me. So, that sort of personal kind of experience that I've had in the game, hopefully, will give a different sort of, edge when it comes to my...
Have you ever been frustrated by how other sports journalists have written about you?
Well, there was obviously one moment, when Shane Warne said, I've bowled once but 33 times. And obviously, the media in this country just went on the variation. There was always assessing me, can I bowl it slower, can I not, do I have an arm ball? And even some of my friends who don't know much about cricket, even they were asking me about, variation. So it kind of got quite a big theme for it. But I think at that time, I remember... when things were going really well for me, I would read every article and, feel great. But then when things are not going so well, you read about that as well. And that's when you're young and you learn from that. So, I was lucky to have a mentor in my life as well, who unfortunately, is not with me, with us. But he was like my sort of, my guardian angel or my blanket that helped me, to get to the top.
Yes, tell us about your mentor and why did he play such a pivotal role?
Yeah, look, his focus was that he would say to me, look, I just want you to play for England. That's what I want you to do. I want you to get to the top. Every game is all about performance. We're going to just talk about performance. We're not going to talk about anything else. We're not going to get sidetracked. We want to get to the top. So he would say to me, like a Duracell battery, if you take 5 wickets, how many games can you keep doing it continuously? What is your lasting power? Are you just good for one game? Can you keep going? Because the more you keep going, then the sooner you get noticed, by the selectors, by the media, and you get into that England side. And I remember, when I came back from university, on my final year, I played 8 games. I took, I think, 51 wickets in 8 games. And then 3 or 4 months later, I was making my debut against India.
Amazing. And,
I remember Andrew Flintoff sort of, tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, yeah, you're playing this test match. And I couldn't believe it. I never thought I would be, playing. But it was that mindset, like mentally you've got to be focused on your training, on your performance, on your skill. And that's it. If you want to get to the top and become an elite sportsman.
Did it come at the price of anything else?
Well, I think I had to sacrifice. The sacrifice was, making sure that I'm, fully, like my skill level is good, my fitness isn't, top as well. And it was like, probably didn't have, my younger days, much of a social life. It was just me and my mentor, where I could speak to him about my, my game, about everything about, cricket that was going on. So it's a nice place where you can just let your hair down and you can talk about it. But then when you go into playing for your team, you're fully switched on. You're 100% there to perform for the coach and the team and winning games of cricket.
Did fame or success change your mindset?
I think when I instantly became famous overnight, and people said, "Oh, the Monty Mania is back in home," and I remember playing a game for Northants. Everyone would wear masks. I found that really strange early on in my career, because the previous year there'll be a man and his dog at the county ground, and no one would know who I was. So that kind of changed things. And I remember being nominated in a Sports Personality of the Year as well, and that was quite a big deal. So it was just my love for the game. I just loved playing cricket, loved celebrating, but I didn't know that the rest of cricket fans, loved the way I played the game.
Too right. Born in Luton in Bedfordshire to Indian parents. Tell me about your childhood.
Yeah, look, my dad, he used to love playing cricket. He used to play for Luton Tack College, and I used to be a scorer at the age of 10. And he was an all-rounder. So that's how I got into the game. And he used to, he just wanted us to play cricket because being young, he wanted us to be active. And there was the dream for my club, Luton Town and Indians. They said, we want a cricketer to play for England. That was their passion and their dream. And it was through their sort of, love of the game, it caught on to me. And so, I owe a lot, to that club to helping me to get where I am today.
And did you show particular talents as a child for cricket? Were you an especially good athlete?
Well, I used to always feel down that fine leg. And then when you're playing, age group cricket, if you're bowling all the overs, then you bat, sort of lower order as well, which is evidence how my, cricket went. But the changing moment for me was when I was 14 and Paul Taylor, who used to play for Northants, I was at, I think, Upper Sandy College, North Bedfordshire. And he said to me, you should bowl left-arm spin because you're not getting any quicker. I don't think you can become like the next Wazzy Makram. That's what I wanted to become. And for me, when people say to me, who's your messiah, I always say it was Paul Taylor. That was the changing moment when he said you should become a left-arm spinner. And the next game I played at Royal Grammar School, where my parents took me there, and I took 7 for 35. And then following year later, I was playing minor counties cricket with the likes of Wayne Larkins.
So what does left-arm spinner exactly mean in technical terms?
It just means like for a left armer, the ball, pitches on middle stump and turns away on off stump, while an off spinner who's a right-hander will pitch the ball outside off and it'll turn in.
Yeah, I see. And I guess you had to adapt to that, but once you got the hang of it, that was it.
Yeah, that was it. Because from a young age, I had good accuracy as a left-arm seamer. So when I bowled spin, I had long fingers. That's what Paul Taylor said. He goes, you got quite big shoulders, you got long fingers. And when I bowled a few balls in that indoor net and it's turned and bounced, he goes, you should give it a go and see how it goes. And since then, obviously, I haven't looked back.
What about the values that you grew up with from your parents?
Yeah, look, my parents, did say that you should, if cricket doesn't work out, you should try and, have an education. But as I was working hard on my education, cricket kept on, growing, opportunities kept on coming my way. At the age of 16, played minor county cricket, then played under 19s at the age of 18. And then soon I was, at the age of 23, while I was at university, after university, I played, for England. But at that time, the ECB had 6 centres for people to go to university and to get the best of both worlds. their career, education career, as well as cricket. So that, I think, helped me. You know, I went to Loughborough University and Graham Dilley was my coach there.
Yeah.
So that helped me to, I guess, play at the right time.
So many highs. What about the low points in your career? Do any stand out?
Well, I think there was a moment where, in cricket, people thought I was, kind of gone off the rails. I fell, I think, out of love, with cricket. And, I remember, even speaking to like sports psychologists and people like that, and they said, maybe, you should, it feels like, something isn't quite, right with you. And even my family and friends, they kind of helped me out and obviously try to get some help there. And I remember going on, medication, and it kind of calms your mind. You take an antidepressant, it really works. It's a powerful pill, and your mind really calms, but your personality isn't there. And therefore, I then went the holistic approach, and now it's been over 5 to 6 years where I haven't been on medication.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to tackle it that way. And I'm fully well now.
Al, congratulations on your recovery. What do you think was behind that? Was it public expectation, or do you think it was just physiological that you just developed a couple of mental health issues, which can happen to the best of us?
Well, I think I probably put a lot of pressure on myself as a cricketer. For example, it's all very much performance related. So, if I'm taking, let's say, every 10 overs a wicket, then I feel great. But if it's taking me, let's say, every 15 overs, 90 balls per wicket, and then that keeps growing, suddenly my performances are not good. I'm trying harder and harder when actually I need to maybe take my time out of the game and just sort of switch off and then come back in, because it triggers our all performance. If you're performing well, you're perfectly fine. It's when you're not performing well, you try harder and harder, and then you get upset with your teammates, upset with the coach, and then it just becomes more of a downward spiral.
And you said that you found a holistic solution, that you're not having to take any medication now. So what was that holistic solution? What did you do?
Well, I think for me, I remember going to Australia, and I had, my physio there, who said to me, look, every time every time you do something that makes you feel good, just write it down. Like going to the gym, talking to people, watching a comedy movie, doing yoga, reading. So anything that, when your mood is down, do something to uplift it, rather than, taking the easy option of taking medication. But I know that for some people, they may need that because of the chemical imbalance. But I was, I think maybe a sportsman mindset, they like going through the pain, through the tough, and get out on the other end. And that was my challenge. I wanted to, get better without taking the medication.
And it's a complete myth that cricketers are not athletes. I mean, you are such a fine specimen of a man, and fitness has been a strong theme of your career, hasn't it?
Yeah, fitness is really important, and it's important, to do the right type of fitness. I wish during my playing career I had a personal trainer where I was, really fit for my body weight, doing more body weight exercises rather than weights. Then I would have been, I think, much more athletic. And that I learnt that later on, once I sort of stopped playing cricket. I had a PT trainer.
So whilst you were a cricketer, you were lifting heavy weights, were you?
I was probably doing more body weights rather than...
Oh, I see.
I was lifting like weights, rather than doing sort of, the body weight stuff, burpees, pull-ups, them kind of exercises that makes you athletic for your body rather than just being strong.
Yes, I see. And I guess a bit more agile, therefore. How about the current Ashes? I mean, what goes through your mind when you watch that competition, given that you played in it with such distinction?
Yeah, look, for me, at the start of the Ashes, I thought England had a great chance. And, I thought Stuart Broad should have played in that first Test match at Brisbane. He's got a great average there. I think he only averages like 25. And someone like Jimmy Anderson, I think he's high 70. So you can see maybe rest him and play at Adelaide. But then when Joe Root, when he won the toss, I think everyone knew that he should have bowled. That was an error as well. So they've just, I think, picked the wrong team for the wrong venues, to be honest. And that's kind of, I think, cost the Ashes. I think they had a good side. But they just, made some selection errors and just didn't pick the right team.
They've avoided the whitewash, which is to lose every single Test match. But what are your predictions for the final part of the competition?
Well, I think they started really well, 12 for 3, and then they wasted a good start, to be honest. And Ollie Robinson, couldn't, bowl because of fitness issues. And it kind of doesn't surprise you. 3 days ago he was playing golf and he sort of had a bit of a bad back. Chris Woakes, he just doesn't seem to do well, conditions away from England.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's he's taken 4 wickets, I think over 60, and I think they call him the English specialist. And maybe he should just possibly play test matches at home in England from now on.
Speaking of England, what are your thoughts about this country? You're a fantastic regular contributor to this show as a panellist, commentating not just on sport, but on politics and other cultural issues. What are your feelings about Britain in 2022? A huge debate going on about our multicultural society, the diversity in our society, and whether it's working or not. What's your view?
Well, I think the difficulty is, since Black Lives Matter, it's difficult for people to talk about diversity, inclusivity, or even like racism issues. I don't think people really want to talk about it. It's quite an uncomfortable and a complex, subject.
Yeah.
So I think going forward, it's about creating practical, solutions where people feel comfortable. That things are being done, for people to, feel inclusive in work environments, in sports, in teams and all that kind of stuff. And I think someone like Gareth Southgate has been brilliant in promoting, to take the knee, because someone like him, if he's promoting that, then that sort of, advocates a more of an inclusivity, especially for people who feel like, some of the issues that during the Black Lives Matter movement happened, that there is actually a British white person in a senior coaching position who is promoting taking the knee. I think that's a really good thing.
And of course, there's been a lot of commentary about alleged racism in Yorkshire cricket. And that's something that you've talked about on this channel. So what's your view about cricket and racism?
Well, I think they've put the responsibility on the ECB now to be accountable, and I just hope it doesn't kind of get washed away where they just they said every quarterly the government will do an update and a review, and I hope it just isn't another meeting, and then it's kind of gets sort of, put away and serious action isn't taking place. Look, in April, they said this year that at boardroom level of every county team, they need to have at least 25% of female, members of that. That was one of their sort of, goals in April. So it'll be interesting to see by April how many other counties have met that target. And then some of the other indicators. I thought maybe the government should have outlined the indicators. They've given the responsibility to the ECB, but it's the government who is going to give the funding of 2.5 million. So if they could have given a bit more of a clarity, right, this is the reasons why you're going to get 2.5 million and this is the targets you've got to meet. I think that probably would have helped the ECB, but they're accountable now, so we've got to see some action taking place. And, we've seen some counties, like the CEO of Northants, Ray Payne, they've collaborated and created an academy in Luton called the Luton Steelbacks Cricket Academy to help British Asians, in that area. And that came off the back of, an idea from, Amran Malik, who was an international sports consultant from Luton, and nothing to do with the ECB. So I think some of the counties will look at, being proactive. I've got a role, in the Inner London, borough sort of lead role with Middlesex to help, coaching pathway, programmes of the under-12s, under-14s and the under-10s. And that gives me an opportunity to see, some of the youngsters, staying in the game. Some are late developers, but that could help, bring in more sort of, cricketers, through the system.
Have you yourself been subject to racism or prejudice, either in the sport or just in life?
I think reflecting back now, I'm probably thinking that I went to, to a seminar for Show Racism, the Red Card, with the MCC, and I learned a lot just sitting there, because when I was playing cricket for England, my focus all was just to get to play for England, take wickets and enjoy just playing cricket. And I was lucky that I had a life coach to guide me there. But now looking back, I'm probably thinking, there's visible sort of racism, which is like the colour of our skin, which we make it. And there's the invisible stuff, which, we don't know people's background. We judge on that, or the education, or
the glass ceiling.
Yeah, or the glass ceiling, which you don't know much about these kind of things. So, cricket doesn't really have an anti-racism organisation, and something like Show Racism the Red Card could help, I think, cricket.
And briefly, with the clock against us, do you still play cricket? And if not, do you miss it?
Well, I play cricket on a Saturday at Twickenham, cricket club, which I've been for the past year. At times, especially if there's a turning wicket, I do miss it. I do miss, being taking wickets and winning a game of cricket, especially for England.
Well, look, I can't wait for the next chapter, which is your career as a sports journalist and as a pundit and broadcaster as well. And we look forward to welcoming you back to the sofa here on Mark Dolan tonight. So, Monty Panesar, thank you so much for joining us. Always a privilege. I think you will agree.